frequently that a lot of stuff they do is like, I don't remember what it's, to read it, it's awkward because I'm not used to it. Well, Eileen Sheeper told me at the beginning of the week she's hoping to come here today, and I hope they're here because I miss them. They haven't been in a long time. Do you ever tune into the Bagels and Torah before?
What?
Do you ever listen to the Bagels and Torah that they have? So how are your daughters? I saw them here last week.
They're doing all right.
What year are they now?
Molly's a senior in high school, and Anna's a sophomore. Hi.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yes, and I'm sorry, and Andy?
Andy's a sophomore.
Okay, and where are they?
Baton Rouge High.
Oh, okay. So what does Molly want to do next year?
Well, she's looking at colleges.
Yeah.
She's been applying to colleges. She's been applying to a bunch. I think her dream school would be Washington University in St. Louis.
That's where my baby went.
Really?
Yeah, he went there. Yeah.
How do you like it?
I don't even look.
Okay.
Not only that, he joined a fraternity, and I'm like, what do you want to join a fraternity for? And it was the best thing. I mean, he made such good friends, and he just, he loved it. Yeah,
Okay.
he really did. This was quite a while. Thank you for your emails about the learning day.
Oh.
Yeah, Julie, Terry. Yeah.
Certainly.
It was really sweet that you got that.
Certainly, I mean, I was feeling bad because you came in late, and then, I was trying to get you all set up, and then before I could get you into one of the breakout rooms.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that. But
That's what I was trying to do.
But there was one other thing that we had, a year ago, like last year, there was something in the social hall. And I went, tuned in remotely, and you couldn't hear anything that was going on. I went, oh, here we go again. So last week it was like, here we go again. And so.
And I wanted to say,
and
wait,
all this-
stop, you can't hear
Yeah.
anything because there isn't anything to hear.
Yeah, we had people over, they were doing stuff, we had a pie that we were filling up, and so I realized it was, finally, it was like, oh my gosh, I forgot the learning day, and so when I tuned in, I went, oh, I can't get out of it. But I appreciate your.
It sounds like I can understand missing the learning day, and
Yeah.
I felt badly.
How many people were actually here in person?
There was like 10 of us here in person, I think.
I think I saw Karen Zeppos.
Yes, Karen Seppos.
From a distance from the camera.
Yes.
Let's go. Yeah. Hello, Judith.
Hello,
How are you? I like your puppet mask. Jacket combination, it's perfect. Very good.
Shabbat Shalom, Judith.
I'm going to take nothing out. We'll be right back.
Bye. Do you need help?
No.
Okay.
We'll get back.
Okay. Anyway, Michael. So my Diego went to watch you, and he really, he thrived. He loved it. I mean, I wanted him to go somewhere else. He got into other schools that I thought were better, but at the time he was a long distance runner, and he wanted to get on the cross country team, so he went to watch you. He ended up not running long distance, but he really, really enjoyed it a lot. Why does she want to go there?
Well, she's been getting, advertisements from there, and she's been researching it, and she seems to like the school and the program that it has. She wants to go for international relations.
Oh, okay.
And so she likes the program that they have there. And so we're going to, it's among others, she applied to some schools locally, like Tulane,
Yeah. did you do like the tour, you know, like in the summer?
We didn't go up there, but we did tours of several schools.
Oh, okay.
When I went to, when I had,
Yeah.
we took off for Texas, and, we made a trip, we went to Waco, and took, tour of Baylor.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Hi, Henry.
I miss you.
Good to see you in person.
I was here last week.
Yeah, but I mean, for the longest time, you were not walking in this place, you know. So, good to see you. Hope everything's okay.
You were looking for somebody, a show in Southern California.
Oh, that was a while ago, yeah, yeah. No, Bay Area. Shabbat Shalom.
That's Southern California.
No, it isn't.
As opposed to
They don't consider Bay Area Southern California.
Oh, no way.
You don't.
It's a long drive from Oregon border to.
Yeah, but we're not saying the northern border.
No.
They
The
never
San
call us
Francisco
that.
Bay Area is not Southern California.
That's right, that's right.
For somebody who was born in San Francisco, no way. And for John, who's born in Los Angeles, no way. He doesn't like LA, but he loves the Bay Area.
Anyway, yeah.
So just FYI for you, we are officially 10:45.
Well, I saw that in the announcements,
Yeah,
but I
right.
saw next week it's 10:30.
No, it's
No,
10:45.
not in the announcement.
Well,
I
then
read it.
that's a
Yeah,
typo.
because I thought
That's
today was
just a typo.
10:45, and then I saw, well, why is it next week 10:30, so maybe.
No, it's 10:45.
Anyway,
Depends on what time the football game starts.
I don't know. Well, it's tonight.
Henry, where in Oregon were you?
Where in Oregon? Not for long.
Not for long.
I just visited Portland.
Oh, I grew up there.
My older son lived there for like 3 years.
doctors, you take from there. It's gonna be colder tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
I may have to turn the heat on.
You know, I finally turned the heat on about a week and a half ago. I said, Lord, instead of sitting around with cold hands in my house, I will succumb and admit to heating. I can't believe you don't have your room. It is cold.
The temperature in the house didn't really drop below 70.
My house is colder than outside sometimes. So the cold inside, you go out and come up.
Rebecca,
Yes?
do you have, plastic cards in your gift shop?
I believe we do. And the gift shop is open tomorrow from 9:30 a.m. to 12 noon.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Well, no, like this one. I forgot to go over the.
Baby or.
Shabbat shalom. Michael.
Yeah, I do, yeah. The usual. You know, I hope that I ain't the same way that she's going to take five years. Pretty sure, well, okay.
Shabbat shalom to everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
So, I was gonna say, most of you were in Torah study, so you already knew, but Shabbat morning services are going to be 10:45 now, so that we can have the full hour for Torah study. Because that's kind of our one opportunity to really do some study together. So we'll begin with a nigun.
Yalla la la la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la la la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la la la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la la la, yalla la la, yalla la.
And we will be doing service 1 this morning, but I'm going to start with a reading from service 2. So let's turn to page 287 in your prayer books. The reading, second reading on the page, so the middle to the end of the page. Let's read responsively. We give thanks to you, O God, for this Shabbat day, which unites us as a community of faith and hope.
For the holiness of Shabbat, which can lead us to fulfill the best that is in us, we give thanks.
for the memories of Shabbat, enriched by generations of our people who observed it and from it drew courage to face hardship and light to banish darkness, we are grateful.
We offer thanks for the peace of Shabbat, the day consecrated to family love.
O God, our turning to you exalts our humanity. You are the joy of our life, the source of its greatness, its power, and its beauty.
Help us, O God, to find inspiration for the coming week. Help us to find peace within ourselves and one another.
And we now will continue with Service 1, page 186, with the singing of Modeh or Moda Ani Lefanecha, as a prayer that we normally would say when we wake up in the morning, to basically say, thank you that I woke up. I'm glad to still be alive.
Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechezarta bi nishmati v'chemla, rabba emunatecha. Modeh ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, shechezarta bi nishmati v'chemla, rabba emunatecha.
Rabba
Emunatecha. Emunatecha.
Just 3 times.
Once more with feeling.
We can, and you know, one always needs to keep their sense of humor in life, you know, even when we're going through some tough times. Page 189, with Mag Gadlu at the top of the page. How great are your works, Adonai. How very profound your designs. Hallelujah.
Magadlu Masechaya Me'odam ku machshevotecha Magadlu Masechaya Me'odam ku machshevotecha. Hallelu, Hallelujah. Hallelu, Hallelujah.
We turn to page 193 and we read together. May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest. The next page, 194, we praise God for the gifts of our bodies so that we can be together this morning. They're working sufficiently well. We read together in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, u'baravo nekavim nekavim, chalulim chalulim, galui v'yadua lifnei chisvei chemodecha, שאם ייפתח אחד מהם, או ייסתם אחד מהם, אי אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומאפלי לעשות. 196, we express our praise and our thankfulness that our souls have been returned to us and that they are pure.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehora hi. 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 Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehora hi.
Page 198, we find the Nisim B'chol Yom, the blessings for our daily miracles, which sort of sounds like an oxymoron, in that we think of miracles as being maybe a once-in-a-lifetime kind of thing. But this is an awareness that there are miracles every day, and that life is a miracle, and various aspects of life is miraculous. And before we chant these together, I invite you to think about what you feel particularly blessed for this Shabbat morning.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan la sechvi vina lehavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivriim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten laya'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, המעביר שינה מעיניי ותנומה מאף אפיי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בצלם אלוהים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני בני חורין. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שעשני ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוזר ישראל בגבורה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם עוטר ישראל בתפארה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו לעסוק בדברי תורה.
Let's read together on the top of page 205. We seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and in the study of Torah. And in your search for us, you find us in the bending of the knee, in the rigor of study, in the honesty of commerce, through a good heart, through decency, in respect, true fellowship, companionship, and love, through trust, peace, in the no that is really no, and the yes that is really yes. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. We'll continue on page 212 as we enter the Psukei Zimra part of our service. Baruch Shamar v'haya olam.
Baruch Hu.
Baruch Oseh v'reshit.
Baruch Omer ve'oseh.
Baruch Ozer Mekayem.
Baruch merachem al haaretz.
Baruch merachem habriot.
ברוך משלם שכר טוב ליראיו.
Baruch Aliyah v'kayam lanetzach.
ברוך פודה ומציל, ברוך שמו.
Continue silently. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mechukol v'tishbachot. Turn to page 214, the singing of Psalm 92, the Psalm for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. להגיד בבוקר חסדך, ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. כי שימחתני אדוני בפועליך, במעשה ידיך ארנן. מה גדלו מעשיך אדוני, מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. צדיק אתה אמרי יפרח, כרז בלבנון, בלבנון יזכה שתולים, בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ינובון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו להגיד, כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו.
Now on the very next page, we find Ashrei and Psalm 145.
אשרי יושבי ביתך, עוד יהללוך סלה.
Ashrei Am Shachalo, Ashrei Am Eloha.
תהילה לדוד, ארוממך אלוהי המלך, ועברך שמך לעולם ועד.
בכל יום אברכך, ועלה שמך לעולם ועד.
גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר.
ולדבר שבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
הדר כבוד הודיך, ודברי נפלותיך עשיך.
יזנו דברותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספרנה.
זכר רב טובך יביעו, וצדקתך ירננו.
חנון ורחום אדוני, יחפן מותו חסד.
טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו.
ותוכני כל מעשיך,
וחסידיך יברכוך. כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, וגבורתך ידברו.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, Kod Hadar Malchuto.
מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור.
To make Adonai Kol Hadufim. וזוכף לכל חטופים.
עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם בעיתו.
פותח את ידיך, ומשפיע לכוחך רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב על כל רע, וכל אשר יכוהו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר עלי כל פעם, וכל רעים ישמיע.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, ואתה ועד עולם, הללויה. הללויה, 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 הללו, הללו אל בקודשו, הללו, הללו ברכיהו זו. הללויה, 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 הללו, הללו בגבורותיו, הללו, הללו כרוב גודלו. הללויה, 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 הללו, הללו בתיק השופר, הללו, הללו בנבל וכינור. הללויה, 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 הללו, הללו בטוף ומחול, הללו, הללו במינים ועוגב. הללויה, 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 הללו, הללו בצלצלי שמע, הללו, הללו בצלצלי תרועה. כל הנשמה הללויה, תהלל יה הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלל יה הללויה, כל הנשמה תהלל יה הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלל יה הללויה. כל הנשמה תהלל יה הללויה.
Joel, would you like to lead us in Nishmat this morning? Thank you. Page 219.
מן העולם ועד העולם אתה אל.
Let the the soul of everything alive, bless your name, Adonai our God. In
the spirit of all flesh, glorify and exalt your name forever, O Sovereign. Transcending space and time, you alone are God. We have no sovereign besides you. God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness, and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. God awakens the sleeping, arouses those who slumber, gives speech to the mute. And God loosens the bonds of captives. God supports the fallen, and strengthens those who are bent over. You alone do we acknowledge. שוכן עד מרום וקדוש שמו. ובמחלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם.
Continue on page 224 with the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו. להילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו
Amen. We continue with the Baruch Hu, our call to worship, page 226. If it's comfortable to do so, please rise in body, if not in spirit.
Ya la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. ברכו את אדוני המאור.
turn to page 228. Before we read the Hebrew together, I invite you to think about what it is in the natural world that, in the words of Abraham Joshua Heschel, paraphrasing a little bit, radically amazes you. Where do you find the radical amazement in the natural world? Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei hakol, hameir la'aretz v'nadarim alecha berachamim, uv'tvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit, ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mala haaretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מאורעו שעשית יפארך סלע. אור חדש עד ציון תאיר, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני, יוצר האמורות. Page 230, we praise God for the gift of the Torah.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה חמלת עלינו. אבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו שבטחו בך אבינו מלכנו. ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו תלמדנו אבינו הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה. והאר עינינו בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במשפטיך ויחד לבבנו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך.
Continue silently.
ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני
Join us in chanting the Ve'ahavta on the top of page 234 and then the top of 236.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, אמרת אליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בטיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבביכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריכם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. And on page 240 we find Michamocha, our song of freedom. And not only does it remind us that God can help us through those narrow places in our lives whenever we find them, but I also think it's a reminder that we're supposed to help each other through narrow places in our lives.
Ya la la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. יא לה לה לה, יא לה לה, יא לה לה לה, יא לה לה לה, יא לה לה, יא לה. Ya la la la, ya la la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la, ya la. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופתחי נאומך, יהודה וישראל. בוא עלינו, אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Our Amidah begins on page 242, and if it's comfortable to do so, please rise.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. O God, open up my lips as I begin to pray. O God, open up my lips as I begin to pray. I תהילתך, אדוני שפתי תפתח, ופי אני תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק, אלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. מקשיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לכשלי עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומיתו מלך, מלך מנהיג ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות ביתים, ברוך אתה אדוני בחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו ומלכנו, הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו, ורחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי בציון, לדור ודור. הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקיש. ושמך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue the Amidah silently to page 258. Please feel free to be seated when you are ready.
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו יוצרנו כולנו כאחד, באור פניך. כי באור פניך נתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. תורת חיים ואהבת חסד, ואהבת חסד, וצדקה וברכה ורחמים, וחיים ושלום. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך. וטוב וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך.
We take a moment for silent reflection, and then we continue on page 260.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, יהיו לרצון אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך. אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, God, my rock and my redeemer. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru, ve'imeru, Amen.
We now continue with our Torah reading, Bachumash. We will find the blessings on page 368, and a little bit of introduction before we get there, and then I'll give you a page number as well for the reading, and Joel will be reading both our Torah and Haftorah readings this morning, so thank you, Joel. The Torah reading this Shabbat is from Parshat Vayetze. Jacob has stolen his brother Esau's birthright and has to flee for his life. Along the way, he stops for the night and has a dream. Angels are going up and down a ladder, and God speaks to Jacob and promises him land, abundant descendants, and blessings. God promises to remain with Jacob and to protect him. When Jacob awakes, he says, Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh, v'anochi lo yadati. Surely God is in this place, and I did not know it. The parashah begins with these words, Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva, vayelech Harana. And Jacob departed from Beersheva and set out for Haran. Rashi asks why the Torah mentions Jacob's departure when it would have been sufficient to say Jacob set out for Haran. He answers, it tells us, and Rashi often answers his own questions. We have this saying, what's bothering Rashi? So he asks a question and he answers it. So he answers, it tells us that the departure of a righteous person from a place makes an impression. As long as a righteous person is in the city, he is its magnificence. He is its splendor. He is its grandeur. Once he is departed from there, its magnificence, its splendor and grandeur has gone away. Compare this to Aviva Zornberg's explanation. Rashi speaks of a void left behind as Jacob begins his journey. But perhaps the void is in Jacob as well. As he goes out of his place, a vacuum separates himself from his origins, a kind of necessary detachment. If Jacob is to find a wife, he must separate himself from his parents, body, mind, and heart. Listen to a third explanation. We leave the familiar behind. We leave, and then in the quietness of the night, in the silence of our hearts, the voice calls, the ladder ascends, the dream begins. Do we need to leave home to make our discoveries? Or is it that we need to leave something else to be able to experience the voice, the ladder, and the dream? What might that something else be that we have to leave? So our reading this morning can be found on page 166 in the Chumash. It's going to be starting page 166, chapter 28, verse 10. We're starting at the beginning of the Parsha. And if you would like to, we'll do a group Aliyah. So we are going to do a group Aliyah. If you'd like to participate, please rise. Blessings are on page 368. Ya'amdu kol hakahal la'aliyah la Torah.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן לתורה.
Amen. Please be seated.
Amen. ויצא יעקב מבאר-שבע, וילך חרנה, ויפגע במקום, ויולל שם, כי בוא השמש, ויקח מאבני המקום, וישם מרעשותיו, וישכב במקום ההוא, ויחלום, והנה סולם מוצב ארצה, בראשו מגיע השמיימה, והנה מלאכי אלוהים עולים ויורדים בו. והנה אדוני ניצב עליו, ויאמר אני אדוני אלוהי אברהם אביך ואלוהי יצחק הארץ אשר אתה שוכב עליך. לך אתננה ולזרעך, וחיה זרעך כעפר הארץ, ופרצת ימה וקדמה, וצפונה בנגבה, ונברכו בך כל משפחות האדמה ובזרעך, והנה אנוכי עמה, ושמרתיך בכל אשר תלך, והשיב אותיך אל האדמה הזאת, כי לא אעזבך, אשר אם עשיתי את אשר דיברתי לך.
In between the first and second Aliyot, we will offer a prayer for healing, Misha Barak, for those in need of healing of the body, the mind, or the spirit. And you will need your handout for the Misha Barak itself. On this Shabbat, we've been asked to mention the following names: Joy Lewis, Ted Laborde, Paulette Pico, Lucy Silva, Christine Weil, Ann Sternberg, Minabat Yentl, Mordechai Bendina, Roan Hausman, Anna Carlo, Judy Roheim, Fredel Tamara Bat Liba Bela, Minucha Pesa Bat Charni Umoshe, Yosef Ben Fega, and Gretchen Haynes. Are there any additional names that you would like to mention at this time for those that you know who need our prayers for healing?
Heather Barnett, Storm Matthews.
Thank you.
I'd
Yes.
like to mention Harav Leah Bat Fredel Vidini, Harav Tana Rochel Bat Rosa, Harav Leah Bat Gedalia Ubela, Shoshana Bat Sur Yitzhak de Adira, Israel Ben Freda, Harav Miriam Nakama Bat Bracha Sarah, Lynn Henry Chip Bolshine.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Reverend Christina Peterson, Chief Sherelle Parfait Dardar and her family and her tribe.
Rabbi Steve Chester. We also think of those whose names perhaps we chose not to mention aloud but keep in our hearts. We think of those whose names we probably don't know, the people in our community that are helping to take care of us, our essential workers, all of our medical and medically related workers. And I would also add every one of us who has been living with this COVID as a reality in our lives for the last year and a half. We all need some sense of wholeness, which is what our prayers can bring us. So please join us in the handout, the Lisa Levine melody for Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Misha Berach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May the pain and loneliness we're feeling be diminished by the power of your love. Misha Berach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak veYaakov. Misha Berach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with a vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Misha Berach Avotenu, Misha Berach Imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
We now, Joel, I should say, not the royal we, but Joel will be continuing with the third Aliyah, beginning with verse 16.
Yeah. Amen. Vayikatz Yaakov b'shnato vayomer achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati vayihah vayomar ma nora hamakom hazeh אין זה כי אם בית אלוהים וזה שעה השומעים וישכם יעקב בבוקר ויקח את האבן אשר שם רעשותיו וישם אותם מצבה ויצוק שמן על ראשה ויקרא את שם המקום ההוא בית אל ואולם Luz Shem Ha'ir Larishona Vayidar Yaakov Neder Lemor Im Yeh Elohim Imadi Ushmorani Baderech Hazeh Asher Anochi Iholech Venatan Li Lechem Le'echol Uvegel Lilbosh Veshavti Veshalom El Beit Avi V'chaya Adonai Li Le'Elohim V'cha Even HaZot Asher Shanti Matzeva Yeh Beit Elohim V'chol Asher Titen Li Aser Asrenu La.
Yasher Koch and Todar Rabam Od. And for our blessing after the reading, if you'd like to participate, please rise. Also page 368 at the bottom of the page.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
So, please be seated. Our Haftarah reading for Vayetze is from the book of Hosea. It opens with a brief reference to Jacob's flight to Aram, where he had to work for Laban in order to marry Leah and Rachel. The rest of the Haftarah speaks of God's divine favor and the people's repeated sinfulness. We never hear that in the prophets, do we? No. Hosea calls upon the people to repent. Again, it's a very common message for the prophets. To do so, they must renounce their idolatry and return to God wholeheartedly. They are reminded, only I, Adonai, have been your God ever since the land of Egypt. You have known no true God but me. You have never had a helper other than me. Our Haftarah reading can be found on page 191, beginning with chapter 14, verse 1.
The blessings are on 368.
And blessings are on 372 for Haftarah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay, good. Thank you, Joel.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'milim tovim, v'ratza v'divrehem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'torah, Moshe Abdo, Yisrael Amo, Uviliyeh Ha'emet, Motzedek. Tesham Shomron, Ki Marta, Beloheha, B'chereb Yipolu, Ol Alehem Yerutashu V'hariyotav Yavukahu. Shuva Yisrael Ad Adonai Elohecha Ki chashalta ba'avonecha Kechu imachem devarim Vashuvu El Adonai, Yimru Elav, Kol Tisavon לקחתו, ונשלמה פרים שפטנו, אשור לא יושיענו, על סוס לא נרכב, ולא נאמר עוד. אלוהינו למעשה ידינו, אשר בך ירוחם יתום. הרפא משובתם, אוהבים נדבה, כי שבה פי ממנו. אהיה חטא לישראל, יפרח כשושנה, ויח שרשיו כלבנם. ילכו ינקותיו, ויהי חזית הודו, בריח לו כלבנם. ישובו יושבי בצילו, יחיו דגן ויפרחו כגפן, זכרו כיין לבנם. אפרים מליות לא עצבים, עניתי באשורנו, אני קברו אושרנם, ממני פרייך נמצא, מי החכם ויבין אלה, נבון וידעם, כי ישרים דרכי אדוני, בצדיקים ילכו בם, ופשעים יכשלו בם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל עולמים, צדיק בכל דורות. אוי הנאמן, אומר מעושה, מדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק, על התורה ועל העבודה, ועל הנביאים והיום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד לא תפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך, בפיך חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת.
Yasher Kog, and so many thanks, Joel. Oh, like a hug, indeed. Thank you.
Emet.
Thank you. So we are now going to, I'm not going to call upon Joel to do something else this morning. But really, really many thanks, Joel. We are going to be returning to our prayer books. For the Elenu, we'll begin on the bottom of 586, and then it jumps to the top of 588 and then 591. If it's comfortable to do so, please rise as we open the ark.
עלינו לשבח בנו פרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת זו, ושכינת זו, בגודל מרומים, ואלוהינו אלון, אמת בתינו אפס סולתו, כאן כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום, והשבות אל לבביך, היא אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אור. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We turn to page 594 as we prepare for the mourner's Kaddish. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love what death has touched. We find the Kaddish on page 598. On this Shabbat, we are in the period of Shiva for Elaine Garver, the mother of Michael Dresnick. Period of Shloshim for Elizabeth Saxey and Marvin Bender. Period of Shana, up to 1 year for Wallace Dunham, Michael Carpenter, Jimmy Brownleader, Mark Cohn, Lorraine Beverly Sclaver, Judy Waxman, Tibor Perizet, Paul Hussman, and Herbert Barton. We are observing Yahrzeits this week for Ralph Israel Bruckner, Karen Denning Gibbs, George Joel Ginsberg, Jack Isaacs Sr., Doris Rubenstein Cantrow, Harold Kaplan, Elsa Rosenthal, Margaret Winkler, Louis Levy Kaufman, Gerda Nur, Florence Sepos, Fanny Fellman, Eva Seifter Brown, Hannah Glick Margolis, Annie Saltz, Ada Kaplan, Mira Miller, Gerald Berenson, Thekla Katz, and Jules Watsky. Are there any additional names to add to the Kaddish list, or the pronunciation of any names to be corrected? Thank you.
Leonid Sergeyevich Magnitsky, Sergei Leonidovich Magnitsky, Galina Starovoitova, Franz Schubert, and Frank E. Taylor.
We also think of those who have died from COVID in the past year, and we are particularly mindful of those that died in the Holocaust at this time, who may not have anyone to say the Kaddish for them. Zikronam Livracha, may each of their memories be for a blessing as we now join as a congregation to support the mourners among us. And please either rise or remain seated depending on your tradition. Yit Gadol
V'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, V'yalma Divra Chiruteh, V'yamlich Malchuteh, V'chai Echon U'v'yom Echon, V'chai Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala U'vizman Kariv, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam U'lalmei Almaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yithaleh V'yithalal, Shemei Likudesha Berichu, Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushbechata V'nechemata, Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen.
Osei Shalom B'mromav, U'yaseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And together we say,
Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. In terms of a few announcements, what I would say is please do look at your weekly emails because there's so much going on. That's the most accurate place in terms of time and place in person and what hybrid options that you might have. And in case you were not aware of it, we're in the process of finding a name for the new congregation. There's been midnight on the 11th was the deadline to submit your own ideas, but the voting will be beginning. And next Shabbat, November 19th, here at Jefferson Highway, we will have what is we're calling a naming Shabbat. And that is not only will the names be disclosed of suggested names for the new congregation, but if you would like to acquire a Hebrew name for the first time, or you would like to change your Hebrew name, I have had two phone calls in the last month from elsewhere of people wanting to change their names, Hebrew names. If you would like to do that, please talk to the rabbis kind of ASAP so we can talk to you about changing Hebrew names.
The gates are closing.
Yes, yes. And Turkey Train is on Sunday. You still have an ability to bring a frozen turkey to Kleinert Avenue on Sunday between, actually the time's not on here.
Probably 9:30 and 11.
9:30 and 11, okay. And if you know, Hanukkah is coming, and the gift shop over at Kleinert is going to be open on Sunday from 9:30 until noon. And book club is meeting on the 21st at 3 o'clock. And there's also the Big Buddy shopping spree. So there's a lot going on. So please do look at your weekly emails because that's where things are. I wouldn't rely on our website right now, at least Jefferson Highway's website, for the most accurate time and date because it hasn't been updated, I think, for a while. But the weekly emails is really your path to accurate knowledge, and and sometimes there's our typos in there. Morning services will be 10:45 every Shabbat morning, so we can have a full hour for Torah study. Even though I think it might have said that next week it's 10:30. We'll have to get that adjusted for in perpetuity for the next 6 weeks. As things change. Are any other announcements that need to be made? Okay, how to get you guys really quiet. Our closing song can also be found on our handout, Big Yado, which is actually the last verse of Adon Olam, but Craig Talman's melody for Big Yado is a little different than some of the melodies for Adon Olam, which of course actually can be sung to all kinds of
Any melody.
any melody, but this one is soulful. I was looking for some soulful things this morning.
Biyado afkid rochi בית אישן והעירה, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא, ואם רוחי גוויעתי, אדוני לי ולא יירא. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand.
Shabbat shalom to everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, John, for adding your voice this morning, because you wouldn't want my voice. And thank you, Joel, for all of the chanting. And thank you to each and every one of you for being here this morning and contributing to the sanctity of our time and space together. Really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
And hugs to Michael Dresnick.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. I'm sorry. I missed it. I missed it terribly. Missed it a lot. Thank you. Shabbat shalom, Joel. So I'm not doing Torah next week. My personals are like so rusty. It's sad. It's just really sad. So we don't remember your name. Will, nice to see you, Will. Okay, so remember I told you your Talita and my Talita from the same weaver?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it is the pattern. Yes. Huh.
Yep.
Do you know the name?
Oh, yes, Shizrei Kodesh, the Kleinmans, Kareen Kleinman.
She's Ray. That's right. She's Ray Kodesh. I remember.
Yes, yeah, and on Sota Yotzer in Jerusalem. They're friends. I lived across the hall from them in Jerusalem.
Oh, that's really nice. I didn't remember you telling me that before. Huh. That's nice.
I did tell you that.
That's lovely.
So the answer is yes, I do know. Okay, so this paragraph is an outline. So it should be somewhere else, because it says classroom copy.
All right. Thank you.
So,
Yeah, we'll find the right place for this.
okay.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I know why it's a classroom copy. It's a classroom copy because it doesn't have any transliteration.
Indeed.
So, okay.
Good to see you.
See you later.
Best to Zelda.
Oh God, I gotta try and get eardrops into her ears.
Yeah. It's a tough job, but only you can do it.
Okay, see you later.
Take care, Bathsheba. See you tonight.
Yes. Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll see you tonight.
I'll see you tonight. I think we decided to do, yeah. She's got one,
I'm sorry.
I think we're gonna do it last night.
Okay.
Because we're gonna say that other discussion or the camera group is there.
That
three coasts in our country, right?
Right.
And a lot of people will say, oh, bi-coastal, wait a minute, what about the Gulf?
Yeah, but how about LA? I mean, Louisiana?
So now,
Los Angeles,
so now it's like, is it LA, Louisiana, or Los Angeles?
I've had many things.
But where's the Bay Area?
Well, my son was in
Because of
Berkeley.
that
In Berkeley, our sweet boy is in Alameda.
Yeah.
Right, right. So where does he live in, what part of Berkeley?
South Berkeley. Yeah, South Berkeley. Russell. Okay, yeah, we live on the west road. We also live in Los Angeles out, I mean, trying to get out of LA. Oh, that's so funny.
Los Angeles for 10 years, and in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's funny.
So the house we rented was in Los Angeles, out in the north part of Berkeley, kind of below the Marine Circle, which is a lovely part of town. And, but right off the,
This is the place to
Claremont
be.
Boulevard,
Yeah.
where there's the African Jamaica shop. The signal there, something called the Upland.
Tiny little river,
And just before that is
just
Contrast Road.
below
okay.
Interstate
We,
10,
we had some.
and above the
But we
90,
just had-
leaves the highway
We had a
across
pond
through
in
the
our driveway for a
casinos
few
in
days
Mississippi.
because
As you cross over to
my
Alabama.
son wanted his bedroom furniture for
is
my
a
granddaughter.
river.
Oh.
And so we
Is it
had a
out?
time and we
Yeah.
put the bedroom furniture and then we
That's
just
how
filled it
Anglo
with
pronounced it.
stuff
I'm sure that
Yeah.
to go out there.
Yeah.
Because nobody has that.
broken.
So it was like stuff we wanted to take anywhere. And we're
I
not
don't
even
know why
in the
that
service
little
bar.
river
It's
got
like
that
lots of
thing,
things,
but,
clothes, it just got all sorts of excess stuff. It just got picked up and so it should be delivered the Monday of Thanksgiving week. So
should be
we
delivered.
spread it out. There was a lot of unloading.
Wow.
Well, in operation, enjoy, we haven't been back to the Bay Area since summer of 2017. And our oldest son is in San Francisco. He's come out to visit us twice since we had. He came out to Chattanooga. And he came out
I
to
pronounce things so
But
well.
it's a business.
It's Herbert, it's Herbert. Now it's
We'll
Herbert.
probably go in, the elementary shuts down at Christmas break, so we'll probably go on.
When I first fell in love with orange sherbet,
No, not yet.
is there a
If I'm looking for an interim position, those usually don't even get posted until December, January, We have to figure out.
1 inch in 10 years, it's fast.
Well, that's a good idea.
It's
And I
happening,
think that
don't
really
we,
just
well,
puts me in-
it's always like Passover and
What a
Thanksgiving,
wonderful-
but,
just-
I know, right?
Right.
We were looking at
What a
downstairs.
measure of
So we figured 8 is
and
probably
time
about.
and space.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
So we
It's good
need to
for
get
me.
rid of some stuff, want to get
For
rid of
instance,
some
the
heavy furniture.
oldest mountains.
And we need to,
Lower
you know,
48 are the Appalachians.
Oh, yeah.
we have 19,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah, we have major books, and then we still have a bunch of boxes of books to take out there. It's like, what we have to buy, just fill up with them, yeah, fit in there.
Yeah.
because,
It's not-
you know, once we do a
Yeah.
final,
Down
final,
here.
final, who knows
The
when.
Canadian
Yeah.
Rockies, they're still,
Yeah.
they're basically
Then you'll
the
have to
range of
wait.
Canadian Rockies.
Oh, yeah, I was just.
But it's a matter of plate tectonics, it's
So
a
we
matter
have
of
all of our things with
plates.
us,
Yeah.
except for our
Pressing
grand piano.
where
and stuff.
against which other.
Oh, okay.
And we'll never, I mean,
And
there's source of,
the plate
since
tectonics of
19,
the western
it's
coast of the
2000,
United States are such
what did we do?
that those mountains
2012.
are still being pushed up.
We went to Canada, we went to Toronto.
By size.
We left the piano, this tiny company. They were supposed to try to sell it for us.
Oh, really?
And it still hasn't been sold.
They are.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Nobody wants a grand piano, nobody wants a
In the
grand piano.
60s,
We had spin it, but we don't care, I said, well, that shit off, what do we do with it?
Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there aren't grand pianos anymore, unless it's like a music school, like the university where they use them.
How we difference from the rocks.
That were used by the
And then after I
San Francisco
did
Symphony.
environmental
One night,
work, I realized,
we did this fundraiser.
the rocks aren't, in
every
fact,
year.
that is also
They
life.
had like 10 pianos.
Not as obvious.
Played one night, and
The
the rest
rocks
of the sold was used.
I
Nothing.
think mine is gonna be 100 years old next year. I think
It's
it was
sad.
1922.
That also-
Because it was my mother's.
Simply is a question of
Wow.
what you
So
can.
that has a lot of
measure,
sentimental,
what you
yeah,
can
but
see,
it's like we have.
And what you can learn to understand
Yeah.
is changing even though you can't see it.
But nobody wants to make pianos.
Did you get to go to the Appalachians much? John's master here.
Not as much as I think.
All right, well, Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
See you in December.
Enjoy your family time.
We got to go to the. got to
Say
go
hello
to
to
some-
the Bay Area for us. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I grew up in that whole area, so,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I forgot
grew up
about
there,
this.
West Virginia.
West Virginia, oh, yeah. Where in West Virginia?
Little teeny town called Clarksburg.
Clarksburg, okay. Yeah.
But if you go to Elkins and then straight up in the mountains, you'll find the Canadian tree line, which is
Ah,
fascinating. That all of a sudden, everything changes, and because of the elevation.
okay.
All these trees and all these things that aren't anywhere else are
Right.
really a unique place,
Wow.
really beautiful. This state is so sad though.
Louisiana?
No, West Virginia.
Oh, West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
so sad. It's just heartbreaking.
I did some work for Bank of America with their senior environmental policy lending analyst, who Bank of America was at the time one of the 2 or 3 most largest dollar volume lender to Appalachian coal. And I got to do some work to help them figure out why they should no longer be funding mountaintop removal mining. And in the course of, and there was a lot of action going on in the first term of the Obama administration, actually. The American Mining Association was fighting some new Clean Air and Clean Water Act rules, how you could dispose of your overburden from mining. And I read voraciously, and I went into all kinds of different websites, and I saw all these different mines that were under orders from different agencies to clean up. And the devastation of that landscape from mountaintop removal coal mining is, it almost made me sick when I started to see those pictures of the, and there's this ridiculous cleanup standard that the Bush administration before Obama and the oil companies, the coal companies themselves were promoting, which was we can restore creeks and streams that have been buried under millions of tons of boulders kind of detail as to how long it takes to bring this back, how it in fact cannot be brought back when it's beyond a certain point. And then essentially providing a new rule, which is called the stream protection rule, applied throughout all the coal mining country and everywhere else where streams were being seriously burdened by and threatened by disposal of extracted mineral they call overburden. And unfortunately, the Obama administration pushed it too fast, and they violated the Administrative Procedure Act. They started to use their preliminary guidance documents as though they were final rules before they had gone through all the process of hearings and public comment and adoption. And so when push came to shove, the American Mining Association sued them and won to invalidate this rule. And then the first 60 days, 70 days of Trump administration, there's this weird rule called the Regulatory Control Act or something like that, or Regulatory Review Act, that allows Congress to invalidate any regulation that has not been finalized within 60 days of the new administration taking over. It's been in existence since the 1950s.
I was gonna say, it's one of those obscure laws that someone just brings
That is
out.
no longer obscure. It had only been used once in the 1950s by the Bush administration. And I forget what the rule was, but it was non-controversial. It was like a telecommunications rule that the Bush administration, Congress used to kill that. The Trump administration rescinded 17 environmental and public health rules, regulations, within those first 60 days, and one of them was that stream protection rule. And I actually cried when I read that, because this law says that when Congress does that, when it revokes or rescinds a regulation like that, no new regulation of that kind can ever be reintroduced.
It's like a double jeopardy type.
Like that. It says, unless there is a finding adopted by a 2/3 majority of Congress to explain why you have had to reintroduce this after you struck it down. And there's no required showing at all, no reason for why you struck it down. You just have it's a 51-49 vote, and it's gone forever. Nuts, just nuts. I mean, anyway, we love the Appalachians, we love the Smokies. We were in a place in Chattanooga that was literally, well, you know it. Lookout Mountain and Signal
good for the environment, it's not good for the future, is you have to have the alternative plan, because you're talking about the people aspects, whether it's coal mining or if it's lumber, it's like, you've got to get people an alternative to support themselves and their families. When you think about coal mining, especially with all the
Computer coder isn't gonna do it. There's people who are not educated.
And the struggle is to find ways that here in the oil and gas industry, the same kind of anxiety, the same kind of pressure and concerns. It's one thing to say you can't eliminate or phase out oil and gas exploration and research and development and transmission, et cetera, the whole infrastructure, without providing additional jobs for those workers. And it's something entirely different to actually have jobs that are available for those workers, that they not only might be trained to be able to work in and provide for their families in, but which they want to do.
And see, that's a big issue in like West Virginia, because generation after generation after generation, we're all coal miners. That's all they did, that's all they wanted to do. And then somebody breaks free and becomes something else and doesn't come back, and then that's when you see that everything collapses.
Yeah.
When it just collapses, and it's really sad. I mean, the one guy that's running for senator in Ohio, he's from West Virginia, he wrote the Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Vance is his
Yeah.
last name.
Fascinating, fascinating. But, you always think when he first started coming out, you would have thought he was a liberal. No, he's like super conservative. But what he says is so true about what happened to the state. I mean, and that's the problem. There was nothing developed. And so then you have all the big coal companies who have all kinds of engineers and, people from everywhere come in, shut down those mines, all those people leave. All the money they donate to schools leave. As taxes they pay leave. And there's nothing else to bring the people back. I mean,
The white collar
Yeah, kind of
people
ghost
have
state.
other places to go.
right.
They don't have a problem getting, well, that wasn't their only work to begin with.
Right. They can be an engineer out west. They can be an engineer
Right.
somewhere else. They can run a company, CEOs somewhere else. But there's nowhere else to go. And then you have, the drug companies came in and then they crushed the people with their drugs.
Yeah.
And that was really awful, awful, awful.
And you heard about Oklahoma and what was the other place? The two states where there had been huge multi-billion-dollar verdicts against the drug companies for the opioids have both been overturned. In the last couple of weeks in Oklahoma, it's huge verdict, and based on nuisance law, which was always struck me as an odd way to prosecute civil action against these companies. But now two different